Well, good morning. For those of you that I don't know, my name is Craig Coker. I'm the chaplain down the street at the University of Richmond and connected to this congregation. And it's a great joy to be with you during this first Sunday of Advent, this Thanksgiving weekend. Today, as we begin the season of Advent, we also begin a new sermon series looking at Advent faith through the lens of traditional Christmas movies. I confess to have never preached a sermon on a Christmas movie, but this is the assignment that Pastor Darcey has given, and so I will do my best to follow through with it. Today's movie for Advent 1, A Christmas Carol. I'm indebted to my friend Matt Rawle and his book, The Redemption of Scrooge, for his many insights into the story. First, a refresher course for those who may have forgotten. Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol was published in 1843. And the story centers on the figure of Ebenezer Scrooge, such a memorable figure that the very word Scrooge has entered the cultural lexicon to reflect a miserly, curmudgeonly character. Don't be a Scrooge. The story has been adapted to genre after genre, always with Scrooge taking center stage. How many other literary characters have been played both by Jim Carrey and Donald Duck? And a whole host of others, I might add. Scrooge. Ebenezer Scrooge is a wealthy businessman, obsessed with making money, who works his sole employee, Bob Cratchit, father of Tiny Tim to the bone, giving him a miserly one day off to celebrate Christmas with his family. Christmas seems to bring out the worst in Scrooge, who rebels against the merriment of the season, spurns his nephew's repeated invitations to Christmas dinner, and lacks any sense of human decency, much less joyfulness. Bah humbug captures the essence of Scrooge. Dickens pulls no punches when describing the miserable man, saying, "He was a tight-fisted, hand-of-the-grindstone Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, covetous old sinner." How cheery. The story opens with three words: Marley was dead. Marley was Scrooge's former business partner, now dead, who visits Scrooge 3 times. The ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. It's an appropriate theme for Advent, in which the church gathers in the present to ponder the past in light of a future hope. In Advent, we recall the first coming of Christ as we anticipate the second coming of Christ. In Advent, we remember the grace of Christ already born in the world and in our hearts as we ponder again the mystery of this grace being born anew year after year. Or another way, in Advent, we remember the covenant God made with Israel, the continuation of that covenant in Jesus Christ, and the promised future in that covenant when all things shall be reconciled in Christ. And like all good stories, A Christmas Carol serves as a mirror to our own lives, to ponder how the ghosts of Christmas, past, present, and future, may reflect where we have been, where we are, and where we may go. The ghost certainly did the trick for Scrooge. Fortunately, for Scrooge and for all of us, there is still time to change. And so he does. And his cold, hurt, and bitter heart is warmed by the Christmas spirit. I don't know if Dickens used Matthew's gospel specifically as inspiration for A Christmas Carol, but certainly Dickens, being a man of letters and a man of his time, would have been very familiar with Matthew's gospel. The lines that we just heard, these lines come to mind as a reflection of the story of Scrooge. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. Therefore, you must also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. This passage from Matthew's Gospel could easily kind of summarize the story of Ebenezer Scrooge. It's a stark reminder that each of us sits under the judgment of Christ, and the time is coming, though we know not the day or hour, when we too will have to give an account for ourselves before Christ. Dickens is clear. The first three words of the story, Marley was dead. The implication is that we shall die too. There was still time for Scrooge, and mercifully there remains time for all of us. A Christmas Carol is more redemption play than morality tale, and yet the Scriptures teach, over and over the Scriptures teach, that our decisions matter. Our actions have consequences. The way that we treat one another has moral implications. The innocent child in the manger is also judge and jury. The King of Kings, also the King of mercy. The way we live matters. In that sense, the story is about Scrooge. Yes, of course, it's about Scrooge. But Scrooge is an iconic figure, a prototype, a portal through which we can see something of ourselves. In the way that all good literature and the Bible itself invites the reader to see him or herself in the story. What does the story say about Scrooge? Yes. Here's a better question. What does the story say about us? The name Ebenezer in Hebrew means stone of help. Here I raise mine Ebenezer, hither by thy help I'm come. Ebenezer Scrooge is someone in need of help. And yet the name has such immense negative connotations that 10 years ago, only 12 children in all England were named Ebenezer. Those were probably family names. It's a wonder there were that many. Yet even if clutching, grasping, covetous old Scrooge can be redeemed, on this Advent Sunday when we light the candle of hope, maybe there is still hope for us too. So here are 3 lessons we can learn from Scrooge. First, we are not prisoners of the past. It is so easy, isn't it, to be consumed by regret, and to be consumed by decisions that we wish that we had made, or decisions we did not make. Those things that we did not do but wish we had, or often things that were done to us, harms inflicted upon us over which we had no control. How easy to be trapped by the ghost of Christmas past, haunted by that ghost. How often the past stays with us. Christmas is a season for children. And I suspect there is a strong correlation between the sentiments that adults have about Christmas, the way that we feel as adults about the Christmas season, and the way that we felt about Christmas as children. Those feelings, were they warm or not so warm? Those same feelings, I think, that first emerged within us as children are probably the dominant story of Christmas that stay with us well into our adulthood. Christmas memories that haunt us or charm us or warm us. Let's look at how Scrooge remembers his childhood.
Good heavens. I was bred in this place. I was a boy here.
Your lip is trembling. And what's that? Oh, on your cheek.
Nothing. Something in my eye.
Do you remember the way?
Remember it. I could walk it blindfolded.
These are but shadows of things that have been. They have no consciousness of us.
I knew them. I knew every one of them. They were schoolmates of mine.
Let's go on.
This was my school.
This school is not quite deserted. A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is left here still.
I know.
That solitary child that the Spirit and Scrooge approach in the abandoned schoolhouse is, of course, Scrooge. Notice when the carriage of young children goes by, Scrooge calls them his schoolmates. He doesn't use the word friends. He says they were his schoolmates. No wonder the adult Scrooge is so lonely and bitter. I came across an African proverb not long ago that goes like this: if the village does not care for the child when he is a child, when he grows up, he will burn down the village. For many people, the holidays are a difficult time because of a hurt inside that hurts all the more at Christmas. The hurting child often becomes a hurting adult. The hurting adult can hurt other people. If we do not find the means, by grace, the means to transform our own pain, we will transmit it to others. And yet a redeemed pain can be a source of healing, not only for ourselves, but a source of healing given and transmitted to others. The second lesson to learn from Scrooge is this: God's economy is not our economy. Life is more than work. Scrooge is a stand-in for so many of us because he is convinced that his self-worth comes from his work. If he is successful at making piles of money, well, he must be a successful person. The more money he hoards for himself, the more he will grow in the eyes of others, or so he believes. Notice the context in which Dickens is writing. It's the first half of the 1800s. Dickens is writing in the midst of Britain's great industrial revolution. Many of Dickens' works are a broadside critique of a supercharged capitalism that sees people as a means to an economic end. Scrooge views his employee, Bob Cratchit, that way, not as a man with a life and a family and a disabled child who needs his care and attention, but as labor alone, to be worked to the bone in service of the almighty pound. God's economy does not follow the same rules as the economy of management and labor, of buying and selling. The economy of God is abundance, an abundance of worth and dignity, and the currency is grace and mercy. The more we give in the mystery of this economy, the more we give, the more we receive. In this economy, the more we love, the more love grows. In this economy, the more thankful we are, the more thankful we become. It is not a zero-sum game. This economy can be enlarged by giving. Like the old miser Silas Marner in George Eliot's novel, a similar story, a similar theme. Silas Marner loses his fortune only to discover that in place of the gold came a little girl. Here's how George Eliot narrates that scene. Marner took the child in his lap, trembling with an emotion mysterious to himself at something unknown dawning on his life. Thought and feeling were so confused within him that if he had tried to give them utterance, he could only have said that the child was come instead of the gold, that the gold had turned into the child. Advent waiting is hard, because through the glitz and consumerism of the Christmas season, the church asks us to wait in hope, to receive a child who comes in place of the gold, a new dawning of God's kingdom that transforms our personal and corporate economy from supply and demand to a new story of grace and mercy. The third lesson Scrooge teaches us is this: God bless us, everyone. Scrooge has been on a journey. He has learned from his past and confronted his present. And after his painful visit with the spirits of Christmas future, in which he sees his own death, bitter and alone, Scrooge awakens in a fright, only to realize that it is still Christmas morning. There is still time for the deep heartache he carries to be transformed into goodness for others. Scrooge did not earn this. Rather, the gift of Christmas simply dawns upon him. His clenched fists softly open into receiving hands. He is now ready to let go of his grabbing and clutching ways and receive and give in return. He shouts to himself on this bright Christmas morning as he wakes up from this horrifying dream. He shouts, "I am as light as a feather. I am as happy as an angel. I am as merry as a schoolboy. I am as giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas, everybody. A Happy New Year to all the world." And in that moment, Scrooge becomes the lost sheep that was found, the prodigal embraced at the Father's door. And this is the gift. This is the whole kit and caboodle. This is the gift. This is what it's all about. The gift of Christmas, pure grace given by a gracious God that can never be earned. It can only be received. A gift that heals the deepest of pain and softens the hardest of hearts. It is the gift the light that once more comes into this world. This is the gift. The blessing of God to each and every one.
A full 16 minutes late. What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?
I'm very sorry, sir. I am a bit behind on my time.
You are indeed. Step in here.
Well, it's only once a year, sir. It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday.
Now, I'll tell you what, Mr. 𝐿𝐴𝐤. I'm not going to stand for this sort of thing any longer. And therefore, I am about to raise your salary. Merry Christmas to you, Bob. Merry Christmas, Bob. My good fellow, then I have given you in many a year. I'll raise your salary and do whatever I can to help your struggling family. And we'll discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a bowl of Christmas punch. But first, let's make up the fires. I want you to go out and buy another scuttle of coal before you dot another I, Bob 𝐿𝐴𝐤. Off with you, Bob. We've saving to do. Hey-ho, Bob!
Yes, sir. Right away, sir.
And Scrooge was better than his word. He did all that he said he would, and more.
And to our Tiny Tim, who got well, Scrooge was like a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city ever knew. And it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well. And so, as Tiny Tim observed,
God bless us, everyone!